All right, so this is episode 8, I think, and we got a special guest. Out of everybody that we've had on so far, I've either coached with them or coached their son, or we've coached the kid themselves. So Greg was my high school teammate. He graduated in 2006, four-time All-Section. He came in fourth, I believe, first. I think he is the Stephen Green maybe, and Greg are the only two three-timers we've ever had. Two-time All-State, sixth in New York State his junior year, and second his senior year, losing to one of the best ever in New York, in Lou Gurella. So, Greg had a storied career. He was the wins leader for a really long time until Scotty beat him, and then Matt beat that, and then Aaron beat that. So our guys lately have been doing really good, but Greg, pretty much shattered the record. I think, it was maybe Morgan Carey, then maybe I took it for a second, and then Greg and Burke both, jumped over that with Greg going nice and higher. So, Greg, we're really happy to have you here. I'm actually
happy
interested.
to be here. I've been a big fan of the series so far. You weren't my coach, but I think it was more of like a peer mentor, maybe we'd call it. I think you were pretty influential, even 1 year older. So
I appreciate that. I think it goes both ways, and we'll talk about that. We'll talk about that a little bit as we go on. But I'm actually really curious about this, thinking about this a little bit, and I don't think I even know the answer at all. Is how you started to get into wrestling and what made you do it in the first place.
Yeah, so it's actually kind of funny because I was watching your interview with Izzy the other day, and it actually turns out it's the exact same story as her. Sensei Mark Dwyer from Okinawan Goju-Ryu Karate. He has like a little feeder program going into Greeley Wrestling, I think, because I used to take karate with him, I think from like kindergarten or first grade, like when I was really little, throughout sixth grade. And then he was like, you're little but super strong for your size, and I really think you should go out for wrestling. And then I kind of joined in seventh grade, and that was that. So me and Izzy kind of same roots there, so it's kind of cool.
Coach, would you take a Greg or an Izzy any day of the week? We got to talk to the smart guy.
Yeah.
Two of the best ever came out of a karate studio. So
yeah, we should really go talk to that guy.
I talked to him.
Mark
Side story before we get into Izzy. I mean, not Izzy. Geez, my mind. Get into Greg a little bit more here is when Izzy got her black belt. I went to go to the ceremony or whatever, and he was really nice guy, humble guy, and he seemed like he was a big fan of wrestling. So, maybe we should like call him and say, hey, why don't we do a clinic over there or something?
We did jiu-jitsu one time, remember?
I used to go over there and teach wrestling classes in college. I would go over to the dojo, and I would kind of show the guys how to grapple a little bit. So he loves wrestling. I think his son wrestled a little bit. I saw him at Deagle's once. So yeah, cool. Not a bad idea.
Cool. So to get back into Greg here, and we could go so many different directions, so I'm going to try to keep it chronological, like through his career, but we could bounce around whatever kind of Greg and you guys are comfortable with. But so do you remember, because I vaguely remember when you came out for the team in the beginning, like, do you remember like your seventh grade, it was seventh grade you started, right?
Mm-hmm.
Your seventh grade experience with middle school wrestling and stuff like that? Because I remember you in high school, and I remember bringing you up to the club and that, but the beginning is hard for me to remember. So, how was that for you?
Yeah, I think it was like, I came in knowing nothing about wrestling, and like really not until I started going up to like John's with you. I didn't know really about wrestling. It was kind of like learn the basics. I was pretty strong for my size, which was probably like 80 pounds in seventh grade, maybe even smaller. So, I don't think I was very good. I was okay. I was probably like 500, around there. I don't remember too much though about that. Like it was kind of a bunch of guys. I can still remember some of the other guys in my grade that were like coming out for the team, and it was kind of just a thing to do. And so, some guys tried it out, but yeah, I don't remember too much actually.
Who was your coach?
So I think my seventh grade coach was Tommy Bolback. His brother Mike Bolback was in my grade. I think Plotkin was involved too at some point.
Plotkin was JV for us in your ninth grade year.
Okay.
I don't know if he might have been modified too, but when we were in high school, my ninth and 10th grade year, Plotkin was the assistant coach.
I definitely remember Tommy Bolback though was
he
one of the coaches. Yeah.
Yeah, he was when I remember that. He was a section champ, right, Coach Tommy Bolback or something from Ossining?
Oh, I don't know. I
He
don't.
might be a little bit in between me and you in that middle spot there
Yeah,
somewhere.
could be.
But
Yeah. If I was in school, I wouldn't have remembered.
yeah, I'm not sure, but he was a nice guy. Good coach. I remember vaguely, like me and some of the guys, like when we before practice, like this little kid stuff, like going to the vending machine before practice, and like it's so weird. Like now that I'm in my 30s, coaching young kids, that like me and Greg really went through the same crap, and I think we need to dig deeper into Greg here because 500 a lot of wrestlers, and me and Greg were talking about this like a week or so ago on the phone. If Greg started earlier, God knows where his career would have went. I mean, it was already unbelievable. But like a seventh grader going 500 to being a New York State finalist and a Division I wrestler is pretty extreme, right? So, Greg, do you remember maybe when that started turning into like, all right, I'm wrestling, but now I want to take this more serious, and this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, I think it was the summer going into high school. I went to, and I don't even know why. I think it was my mom just like found out from someone. I don't remember who, but I used to go to like summer camp every summer, and summer going into ninth grade. She's like, hey, there's this wrestling camp up in Boston University wrestling camp, Carl Adams, and it's a month long. You want to go check it out, and I heard kids go there and like come back a lot better. And I was like, yeah, I'll give it a try. Like, and at that time, I think my mindset was even just like trying to break the lineup in varsity. I was like, oh, I want to be varsity. Like that was the cool, that was like the thing. And I had no idea I was going to like be, all section that year. I didn't know what that even was. So yeah, I think that summer was where things started to turn. Just wrestling 3 times a day, every day for a month that summer was like just totally different than, the modified program, at least at the time. So, yeah, I think right around there.
And then, which, Coach, some of our guys, to get you in on this too here, is some of our guys do the camp thing. I think it's changing a little bit with club wrestling being bigger and bigger every year. And I think we'll get into more with Greg. I think where he made his jumps was more so, doing the club stuff and being around that. But, I mean, if you had to start somewhere, right, if you want to be take it to the next level a little bit, maybe a week camp isn't the worst thing in the world to see if you really enjoy it or whatever. Some of our kids did that,
That's a pretty heavy commitment to do 30 days as a freshman, just going into the sport. I did Jay Robinson's camp 28 day, but I was a junior. But it was a life-changing experience for sure.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's intense, and it's probably a good way to weed out the guys who can't really handle the intensity. But it's a lot, but it was fun.
Well, and it takes a special kind of person, and like I said, we'll get into this a little. We'll get into this a little bit more, but even before Greg got super, I don't want to say super good, when he was winning a lot, right? He was always a tough kid, right? Always a tough. Even when he started, he was a scrapper. If I remember correctly, he was always just scrappy. He would just fight for his scores, and he didn't give up. Do you remember kind of similar question of when you start coming up with me or whatever to the club, and what made you say, all right, I'm going to do this? Like, because that's a commitment. That's maybe a bigger commitment than like camp or modified wrestling. Because especially back then, John's was a little different. It wasn't as
yeah, well, I remember the first time I went up to John's, it was when he was still at the barn in his parents' house, I think. Little wrestling room, and I didn't really know much about anything, but I think it was probably around ninth grade. And I went to that camp, so I kind of like felt like I was getting a little tougher, but not really anything special. And I walk into the room, and I remember like Dave Cole Giovanni was there, and he was just like all section. Dom Otto was there that first day. Like I remember the day pretty well actually. And then there was one other guy, but and you're like introducing them. You're like, these guys are, I think they must have. Dave must have been all section his 8th grade year, and I was
Dave
like,
won his 8th grade year. Dave was a section champ.
Oh, he was a section champ, right? So yeah, and that was my first day there. So I was like, who the hell is this kid? They beat up on me pretty good, but I remember that. I think that being like a pretty, it felt like there was kind of something special going on in that room, and going there and getting beat up on, but seeing like the level that they were at, and I think that was kind of what got me going. And obviously, like you and your dad would drive me up 3 times a week, which was just awesome. Like that was just fun times too. Like I remember just coming back always stopping at that gas station, and he would like force me to get candy and stuff. And I was like scared because I was like trying to be polite, like, no thanks. And your dad's like, get something, seriously. From then on, it was like every time I like had to, you know.
But it was fun though, and I was thinking about this day, and Coach, you could jump in on this too. I was thinking about today, like you look at Matt, Jacob, and Aaron, and you know they have their own groups of friends and whatever, but like they have a little special bond through wrestling, right? They would drive up to the club together, they would go to these off-season tournaments together. And me and Greg were fortunate, but we weren't as fortunate in the fact that John didn't go to as many tournaments as he does now. We went to a couple here and there, but it was more practice 4 times a week or whatever it was. But it was, you know, that's a big memory from my high school, going up to practice in those hot days at the barn and then driving back with Greg, occasionally sneaking Burke into there because he was a pain in the butt and we had to drag him, or Ben Spiegel in the back annoying the crap out of me. And I had to like put him down a couple of times, you know, but I loved it. I mean, it was hard, but I enjoyed every minute of it. You know, I think, Greg, you know, how can we explain to the younger kids that it's kind of worth that commitment? Because you know, it's one of my favorite times of my life doing that. You know.
Yeah, it was great, and you know, it was the first like exposure to me of people working really hard for what they wanted. I saw guys cry there. You know, I saw John make some really big dudes cry. I saw some parents make their kids cry, which, you know, but you know, I saw something I had never seen before, which was just like really working for what you want and getting results out of it, which was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, and just to put out there, that was neither of our parents making people cry.
No, I know what you're talking about though.
Yeah, I mean, I want to go back and forth a little bit with some of the club stuff because a lot of our good memories are from there, but I want to jump into his freshman and sophomore year a little bit. And, you know, I can't not bring this up, even though people are going to go, oh, you got to bring that up. So Greg's freshman year, great season, did awesome, comes in 4th in the section. If I recall, you got tech-falled by Grant Paswell, right? Was it in the semis?
I don't remember. I got spanked though. I do.
Yeah, it was,
remember that. It might have even been like a pin, like a tech pin, where like
it was bad.
Let me get off my back. It would have been a tech, but it pinned me. It was spanking. Yeah.
Yeah, and that wasn't a knock at Greg at the time. Greg was doing great. Like Greg, you know, like he said, he was a 7th grader that was 500. All of a sudden, he's 4th in the section as a freshman. Like, you know, the only guy we've had 2 guys in our program so far since Greg is Matt and Aaron are the only guys that placed as freshmen. You know, Jacob didn't place as a freshman either. You know, so unbelievable start, doing great. But this guy Grant Paswell was good. You know, he won section championship that year, and
he was in 8th grade that year too. Actually,
did he place at States?
Yeah, I think 5th.
So he took like 5th at States. So the kid was good. And everybody was crowning this guy, and he runs this local club now. It's called GPS. Yeah, I think that's what it's called. Yeah, so he runs that club there, and but he was going to be the next guy. Everybody was like saying this kid's going to be unbelievable, and he ended up being a good high school wrestler and whatnot. But nobody on planet Earth would have picked Greg Einfrank to knock him off the next year. I mean, this guy 2 years before was a 500 wrestler and modified, and I didn't even know that. I'm just saying it now because Greg said it. So I'll never forget, we get up to the divisional championship, and, you know, Greg's having a great season, but everybody's picking Grant. Like, nobody, it's not a thing, right? And then Greg beats him outright. I think it's like 5-2, 5-1. Like, he just beats him, right? Just beats him straight up. And I remember being like,
I think it was closer than that.
Was it? I don't remember.
Maybe. I don't, yeah.
But it was a decision, right? It wasn't anything, you know. So Greg beats him. But there was no controversy or anything. He beat him straight up.
No.
Won the match. And then people were still kind of picking Grant, saying he got lucky and, you know, whatever. And a little bit into my psyche, too, is, of course, you know, I wanted Greg and Burke and these guys to win. But me and Greg were in the section finals. I don't know what Burke did that year, but he was in the finals. And so they did it old school way where we go 96 up, right? And Greg was 103. And Greg was wrestling, and I'm like, oh, here we go. And then Greg goes out there and just sticks him. And the whole place erupts. When I say erupts, there's a picture somewhere, I have to find it, of Greg getting the pin. And mind you, Grant used to be an Iowa-style wrestler. So I don't know if they were ever crossed each other in that sense, but he was an Iowa-style wrestler. And you see in the picture, you know, John probably wasn't happy he left the club. So John was very happy that Greg, you know, won that match. And John's in the stand stomping with his feet up like this and his hands up like this. And I remember thinking in my head, wow, that's awesome. Greg's the man. And wow, I better freaking win, because what Greg just did right now, if I lose, everybody's gonna be like, how the hell did you lose after what Greg just did? So I remember like a little bit of both feelings, like, oof, oh my God, like he just went out there and killed this guy. So talk through that.
That was a fun night.
That was great.
But I will say though, I just go back, like it wasn't really like a crazy miracle, because one thing I hadn't thought of this in a really long time, but thinking about it this week, Mike Colgiovanni was our assistant coach that year. So he had just graduated. His Dave's older brother, really good wrestler too.
Yeah.
He had just graduated, and he was like our assistant coach that year. And Grant Paswell had this low single that was like his killer move. Like he just took people down at will with this low single. And every day after practice for that entire year, my sophomore year, Mike would stay after practice with me and just hit low singles on me for like a half hour. And I would just work on defending it. So that helped a lot. I mean, the pin was just kind of crazy. And actually Mike gave me shit afterwards too, because Mike said it was the illegal headlock known around the world. But I don't know if that's true, but yeah, but being able to stay on my feet with that guy was really a testament to just because I was thinking about coaching and how it relates to you guys. And I got to give it to Mike Colgiovanni right there, because he spent all that time with me just hitting low singles. Like, this is the only match we care about this year. Like, this is, you're going to have to wrestle this guy at the end of the year. This is what we're going to work on.
Wow. Yeah, Mike was great. I haven't really thought about Mike, which is bad, in a while until you just brought that up. And he came on my junior year, Greg's sophomore year. And I remember I wrestled a kid from Portchester my sophomore year, and I'd be in like 6'3". And then the next year, with Mike being the coach, I'd be in 18-5. And I think that had a lot to do with wrestling with Mike a lot in the room. And he was really good. He had so many good leg attacks, and he was so versatile. And he was young. It was kind of maybe like if you watched the Scotty one yesterday, Greg, I don't know if you watched that yet, but it's kind of like when I first graduated college and I'm a young coach, it was more that relationship.
Yeah.
But it was super helpful. He was like the big brother when John was probably more of a dad figure.
Oh, he was even younger though, because I think it was the year after high school.
He was young. He was like 19 or 20. He was young. Yeah, he was young. But talented kid, man. That kid should have really
Mayapack guys, the Colgiovanni.
They were good. So, Coach, do you remember Greg a little bit when you first started teaching and he was in high school?
Yeah. When I got to Greeley, it was 2003, and you guys were, I heard about you guys, but I was doing the modified. And I didn't even, I was happy doing the modified, because I just got there. But I kind of wish I would have went up. Just to be around all you guys during that time would have been great. I wish I was more involved. But we had a nice little modified team that year. We went to your dinner at the end with the modified, and I watched the highlight video of you guys. And I saw Greg in the highlight video, and I'm like, holy cow, this kid could move. I mean, you transitioned. You have a really, you probably still do, but a really quick twitch. So you could change from one angle to the other angle really quickly. And I mean, you moves out there it was incredible.
I mean, Lincoln McGravy had a great boot scoot, but you didn't see that. You didn't see that in Section 1 and things like that until Greg started hitting that.
He was unbelievable.
He was so good with it. You think that was your go-to move, Greg, in high school? Probably offensively?
Probably from my feet. And I don't know if you remember. You remember, like, I used to hit the zap tap all the time?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I have a funny story, too. So after college, a couple years after college, I started working at Venmo with this guy, Jesse Bentard, who went to where did he go to? Dobbs Ferry. And apparently, so this is like 2013. And he goes back home to like some of his high school friends who wrestled in Dobbs Ferry. And they're like, yo, I see you're like Facebook friends with this guy, Einfrank. Like, is that the wrestler? He's like, yeah, I think he wrestled. He's like, yeah, our coach used to teach a move at Dobbs Ferry called the Einfrank. I'm like, what? And I found out it was that zap tap, because I hit it so often that it, like, literally the coach was teaching it and didn't know what it was called, so he just called it the Einfrank, and I thought that was pretty funny.
You know what's crazy?
I hit it on. I was like, that was probably my signature.
You know what's so crazy about this though is I can vividly see you doing the boot scoot, and I forgot that you hit that zap tap so much, and now that you said it, I can vividly see that too. It's like it brings back memories almost, like of seeing it happen. Like I remember, I could see the zap tap like a million. The boot scoot, but now I see the picture of the zap tap in my head.
I hit the boot scoot a lot too, though.
Yeah, you had a really good boot scoot. I mean, but I said to DeBellis, I forgot what interview it was, or it might have been off air, but we were talking about how, Greg was tough. He worked hard, but man, I mean, obviously Brown graduate, Ivy League guy, but smart. Like he could pick up stuff like that. When John would show something, Greg would be hitting it nice and beautiful and crisp, and I'd be over there like a robot, like, what are you saying? He'll be like yelling at me. I'm like, I don't know what you're saying to me right now. And John got so much better now at like kind of tone it down. But at me, I was like trying to do an elbow pass or something. He's like, you're doing it with the wrong hand, like, or whatever it was, like getting so fired up. But I remember even as a high school guy, kind of envying Greg a little bit, like, man, he is smart. Like he just gets it. He just gets it. Do you remember that a little bit, Greg? Like moves coming easy, like you worked your butt off, but you were able to grasp things like pretty quick, I feel like.
Yeah, I think so. I definitely picked up on a couple of those that definitely helped me. But I don't know.
No, I mean, it's good. It's good stuff. Good stuff. I don't know. You have any, I was thinking about this. Do you have any funny or fun memories? It could be really wrestling, or it could be up at the club, or something that stood out that, you know, any stories or something that stands out to you that you want to talk about?
It's not really funny, but I want to talk about Coach Totora for a second, because he just talking about like the peer mentorship. One thing that I was just thinking about, and he was right about this too. You know, Anthony, like his life was always wrestling, and mine was too for throughout high school. It really was, but not as much as Anthony. And you know, on weekends, like it was, I think Section 11 had their section tournament like a week before us. And my junior year, he's like, yo, I'm going to go up to Long Island and watch the section finals. And I'm like, I kind of like want to go. I don't know what I was doing. Probably just like hang out with friends or just feeling lazy. And I was like, it's fine. I loved wrestling. I didn't love like watching it as much. And I was like, and Anthony's like, all right, man, like if you lose to the Section 11 kid at States, it's on you. And 5th-6 match, I lost to the Section 11 kid at States. And I don't know, maybe if I went, it was actually a crazy match with Mike Piccirillo, who ended up wrestling with me at Brown. But it was like 15-13. It was a crazy match. So who knows? Like if I went with Totora that night to watch and maybe learn something about him, could have been different. So that just was like something that stuck in my head about Anthony there. And another thing too, I just remember like it's something me and Totora were talking about last week. We didn't quite have the same type of like team atmosphere that I get the sense that you have now at Greeley. It was kind of like, you know, a few of us took it really seriously and a couple other guys didn't as much, but we were really accepting, and especially Totora, of like anyone who wanted to put in the extra work. Like it didn't matter if they lost every match that year. And I remember specifically this guy, Noah Bendowitz, that we were talking about. I don't remember why because he was pretty tough. But not like a superstar or anything. And he needed like a little help cutting weight, and he had never really done it before. And Totora's like, all right, let's go. Like the three of us, let's go. We'll drive to Club Fit. We'll figure it out. I'll teach you what to do. And that stands out to me as well.
Well, adding on to what Greg was saying before about like pure, you know, mentorship, whatever, I feel like if there wasn't a guy like Greg in the room that was as like-minded as me, it would be hard for me to be the way I was too, you know. And I think that had something to do with Burke's success in a way, because Burke didn't have the mind of us when it came to wrestling. He was an awesome athlete. He worked hard, but like if we didn't drag him to things, he wouldn't do it. You know what I mean? And it wasn't because he was lazy. I don't know how to explain it. He just wasn't. He was like, whatever, I'll get away with it. Go ahead, Greg.
It's a Burke story. And if Burke's watching, I hope you don't care about this. But we went up one summer to
I knew this was gonna be
US like military academy or something. And it was like Terry Brands or Tom Brands or both of them was running some pretty intense wrestling camp. And it was only like a week or something. And we all get up one morning, and every morning we had to do this like 5-mile run. And Burke was kind of dragging ass in the back, and the coach was like pushing him. And the next morning, like no one knows where he is. Everyone's like, "Where's Burke?" And I was his like bunkmate. I think we were in a bunk bed, and I knew like we were going out for the run in the morning, and Burke's hiding under the bed. And I'm like, where? And then I guess while we were on the run, his parents came and like picked him up. He left.
He was like that though. He really was.
I remember the whole team actually went to Burke's house one time, because I think he quit, and we all went to his house, and we're like sitting in his living room. His mom's like making us lemonade or something. I remember like sitting there and like we're like, Burke, like you gotta come, you gotta wrestle, like you can't quit. And it actually worked. I remember sitting there being like, this is stupid. Like,
was that when I was there still?
I don't remember. I think so. Yeah, you don't remember that? I can't imagine that was senior year, but
yeah, well, how could it be senior year after being All State the year before?
I can't imagine it was senior year. I think it was like junior year, sophomore year, something like that. But
But we got him
You
into
guys
it.
need a little extra push.
He was never us in the sense of, wrestling was his life, but he was into it. Like, he was at the club, he was doing things. I don't know if you remember, I wasn't at that camp because I just got knee surgery. And I remember after the knee surgery, John made me, and that was the difference though. Like, Burke never would have done this. John made me show up to the camp. This was like 2 days after my surgery, like in crutches. I showed up. And I remember, I vaguely remember Greg telling me this story when I came back. Like, you wouldn't believe what Burke did the other day. And I'm like, wait, what? Like, so it's fun. I mean, we have so many good memories. Crazy. What's up, Coach? I see you there.
You guys had a heck of a team, but you had a lightweight, a middleweight, and a heavyweight. So those were your three. And you had Ben Spiegel in there too, was probably in between you and Anthony.
Greg got a little better, maybe Greg's senior year and after that. I mean, he was good.
Ben was my main workout partner at practice in high school for like my junior and senior year probably. But, like we really couldn't wrestle with each other. At least Totoro could wrestle with Burke a little bit, but I couldn't really. Like, I used to wrestle Totoro. That was actually one of my favorite memories too, is before practice, Totoro would wrestle me with no hands and still beat me. So I still claim that it's because he made me laugh though. Like, he was making the funniest faces, like with his hands like in his sweatshirt, and I was just laughing, and he would kind of take me down.
I remember it like yesterday though, like literally him cracking up and me trying to like foot sweep him, like I was like just chasing him down. But
you always beat me
because you were laughing. But like me and I didn't have senior year 119 Greg, he would have put me on my head. But like it's different too though. That's interesting that you said that, Coach, that we were all 3 different weight classes, but we still were able to be pretty darn good. And we didn't always have the best opportunities of, like, Ben was good, but he got better as he went on. So Greg was way better than him when he was a workout partner with him. I had Burke occasionally. I guess I was the luckiest of the 3.
Well, how was your practices structured? You had Coach Kaleo. Was it like a jog in the beginning, stretch, drill, live?
So the stretch that we used to do, kind of like when somebody would go out front and you count? I got rid of that because it just takes too much time. I'm like, just stretch on your own for 3 minutes or whatever, and we'll get going. But like, he was very much like, we would do that. We would do foot fire. We would do spin drill. Like,
So he was more military.
I think. I don't know. I can't. It's hard to remember because I pretty much blacked out his practices in my mind.
Yeah, it's hard to remember for me too. And then we would go to a second practice that night anyway. That's like where we got our best workouts in. So.
And I want to make it clear too, I don't recommend high school kids act disrespectful to their coaches. I think me and Greg and Burke, considering everything that we were going through with him and dealing with, in a sense, we were all very respectful to him. We never talked out of line or did anything like that. But there probably was times when he was doing a practice and we kind of maybe did our own thing. We saved ourselves for the harder practice that we were going to do that night at the club, or whatever. I remember clearly when we wrestled Fox Lane. And Greg came up with me too. And we wrestled Fox Lane. It was a great match. We lost. And actually me, Greg, and Burke kind of fell a little short. We all were supposed to get pins, I believe. I wrestled not Harrison Cook, the brother, his older brother, Cook. Pete Cook. I pinned him all the time. I teched him. Greg actually probably wrestled the best of the 3. That kid you wrestled at sectionals too, I think. What was his name?
Nick something?
Something, Italian last name.
Yeah.
And you majored him or something. We thought you were going to pin him too. And then Greg had some big athletic kid, and he only decisioned him. And we lost by 1. So, like, if I pinned Cook, we win the match. But it was different. Like, right after the dual meet, me, Kukolo, Greg, probably Tito or something, we all went up to the club and we trained together. Actually, Cook showed up that night, and I pinned him like 15 times. I'm like, this son of a gun. But that's what we did. It was different for us. I like to think that we have a little better system at Greeley now where they don't need to do that. But guys like Jacob, Aaron, and Matt, they did both practices too, but it was smarter, right? Like, I would work Jacob like a dog in practice. Then we would go up to the club, and he just work on a single leg fish, nice and easy for a half hour, whatever it may have been. But he would do the extra too. It was just different.
Right.
So.
Yeah, I think that was my understanding too of how that would – you guys would go there and just work on basic stuff. But back in the day when you guys were there, those practices were more intense.
John's, yeah.
Those were really, you were considering those to be your practice for the day.
But at the time, like if Greg was coaching right now, he would be like us or whatever. There wasn't, I don't want to talk badly about coaches back then. It was just different a little bit, right? So like a lot of those programs, those kids weren't getting pushed there wasn't like John Jay Cross River wasn't what it is now. Fox Lane wasn't what they weren't training as hard in the room possibly.
John Jay Cross River didn't have a team then.
My sophomore year they did.
Oh, they did.
Yeah, they weren't very good. They got better, as me and Greg talked about.
I think we cut them out like my freshman year, and then they beat us my senior year.
Yeah, they beat us. I think they beat us your junior year. They might beat them my senior year. I think I remember losing. That's the same year. It was supposed to be us, them, or John Jay, Fox Lane winning the league that year. And it was supposed to be us in Fox Lane. And
I don't know how you remember this stuff from
I'm upset about it.
Ago.
I'm still upset about it. But I don't know. I mean, I think things have changed in the sense where Section 1 is more developed too. So I think even back then, not only Greeley, other teams needed to get that hard workout at the club. So it made an atmosphere where everybody was planning on going hard. When nowadays, it's like if I get to practice at John's, I'll be like, who didn't have a hard enough practice day? Who needs a hard go? You could go over there. Who needs to take it a little bit easier? You go, you know what I mean? It's different. It's a different time.
You got a lot more kids.
Oh, yeah.
A lot more schools. A lot more people in the section are bought in. John's done a nice job getting that to where it needs to be. Because back then, I think it was Mayapack, Carmel, Fox Lane, some Greeley kids. That was about it, though, really. I mean, who else was training there? Brewster
Little. Yeah. I don't really Pauling, upstate, like teams up there. But I will say, and I don't know if Greg will agree with this or not, Greg might have been the best of both worlds, where Greg was technical and tough. But I will say that we might be missing that a little bit now, that little edge. Like everybody wants to say like, oh, back in my day, we were so tough and blah, 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 blah. That's like everybody's go-to line, right? But we were tough. Like, and I think that's because John's lack of coaching ability back then, technical. Like he knew his stuff, but he was more like, we worked. Like he had the barn had the beams that would come across. It wasn't finished, and we were doing pull-ups on the beams, like, with friggin' bolts sticking out of them. You know what I mean? Like it was just a different world,
Yeah, I still remember this one workout that he had me do, and I think I was training for states or sections or something, and it got me pissed off because it just like kind of didn't seem fair, but he'd put two guys on me, and it was wrestle till a takedown, and then I had to climb the rope, I think with no legs, just my hands, and as soon as my feet hit the ground, the fresh guy comes in. First takedown, and I gotta go up.
Love it.
New guy comes in. It was just like so exhausting, and it was these kids that were like ended up taking me down that I would never take me down, and it just pissed me off. But it made me a lot stronger that way, mentally and physically. So I still remember that kid from John Jay Cross River. He was there that day, and I remember because I walked in. I think it's Brian Catalano.
I remember that name. Now that you said that, I remember that name.
Because he got to me because I walked into the club. And he's sitting there watching video of me because he was in my weight class, and he was sitting there like scouting me. I'm like, what are you doing? And then, like thought he was, was proud of himself when he took me down after I had to climb the rope 20 times. And then I wrestled him in the division finals too. And I beat him, but not that badly. And I remember being pissed. I forget who's one of the other interviews it might have been Schreiber. You were talking about someone who was like pissed that he didn't win by a certain amount of points or didn't get the pin.
Oh, and Matt, when I shut him down, I made him take a 2-week break because he had a close match or something.
I don't know. One of the other interviews, someone was talking about that. But anyway, I was thinking about that too. That was just kind of the mindset that we were in. Just didn't matter. Like winning didn't really matter. You had to like win decisively.
Mm-hmm.
Well, John had we'll talk to John on Friday, and I joke around about some silly things he's done and said, but I mean, he is a great, great coach and a great ambassador for wrestling. And I credit him for a lot of my mentality now, right? Like we're different. Coach DeBellis knows me and Coach Deagle very well. And we both, me and John are both very involved with Empire, obviously. And I think it's kind of like me and DeBellis at Greeley where we complement each other well. We have a little bit of different personalities, but putting Greg through a workout like that, that's the type of stuff that, I feel like when Greg's 45 and he's going through a tough time, whether he has the kids around or whatever's happening in his life, those type of things might, come in handy past wrestling. I think so, at least. Where was I going to go? I wanted to talk about this a little bit. This is actually interesting, I think. And I wish that our kids did this more, right? So we talk about the buying in factor. Once Greg was bought in with me and we both kind of had that thing going on, and then we kind of got Burke into it, and then Andy Gurner even in this sense kind of got into this a little bit where he wasn't as much of a club guy, but he was working. at tournaments, we never would be in the stands. We would always have like our sleeping bags. Greg would have like some goofy little sleeping bag or whatever the heck he would have. We'd be like cuddled up with each other watching movies or whatever the hell we were doing in the corner. I would always bring, all of us, I think, would always bring a change of clothes, and we would shower.
Shower right after your match, yeah.
After our matches, automatic. We didn't even think about it. Bring our own food, things of that nature. And that was John, right? John pushed that on us really hard, but we never I don't think there was much resistance from us. We were like, okay, we'll do it. I think there's walkie-talkies at a time. My dad would like walkie-talkie us and say, you're on deck or you're on double deck. And we wouldn't get up, right? Unless it was like section finals or something. I would watch Greg's section finals match or something like that. But it was a regular tournament, a regular match. I'd stay back there when Greg would go wrestle and vice versa. Like we were worried. We loved each other, but we were worried about ourselves. We were selfish in that fact. And you have to be selfish, I think, to be good. Do you remember any of that, Greg?
Yeah, it's actually funny you said that because I was thinking about it. And I was thinking about, it was probably a time in certain ways that was like the most selfish I've ever been, which is kind of weird to say, like in a team sport. But, it was in a way that you weren't being selfish with bringing down anyone close to you. It was like being selfish at the right times. So, if you weren't a start, like if you were not a starter or someone needed to warm up, like, you'd be there. But at the times that you needed to, like you'll watch the video later or whatever. But like if when you need a rest, you need a rest. And I definitely remember the sleeping bags because I don't know if this is still a thing. The section1wrestling.com. It was like a forum. There was a forum for like section one.
Yeah, it still exists, but it's not like that.
I don't think anybody uses it.
Yeah,
there was like at the section tournament, me and Mike Day, who was a guy, I forget what school, Pauling maybe? No, not Pauling. Beacon. Yeah, he was at Beacon. He was good. I think he was in my weight class too. And people were talking on the forum about him. Me and Mike Day were like cuddling together in a sleeping bag. I didn't really care because like it wasn't that far off, like we were kind of in the same room and like we didn't really care. Like we knew, like we were bought in, like whatever, make fun of us, like we're the ones winning. So it didn't matter to us. But I remember that because it was funny that there were people like saw it.
Well, your junior year, my senior year-ish, that's when like the club really like started to pick up. Like it was different too. We like John I think that has a little issue with some of the older coaches that they had beef with John still, even though John's a totally different person. We were the only real club. We were winning. If you looked at the section champions, my senior year, Greg's junior year, it was like 13 of the 15 or 14 of the 15 were club members, and we were the bad guys. Like either you loved us or you saw us and you kind of scurried away. Like you didn't want to be like, it was a thing. Like it was kind of cool for us though, in a sense where it's like people knew who we were when we walked into a gym, and I remember my senior year, I wrestled Matt Shakin in the section finals and he was a club guy, like a lot of us had that. That's what was happening. It was Iowa style against Iowa style. A lot of that was a thing, Mike Day and Greg or whatever it may have been, Who'd you wrestle?
It was me, Dave Cole Giovanni, Pat McCabe. The three of us, I think 3 years in a row, were section champs.
One after another.
One weight class after another. And those are some of the toughest guys. Like Pat McCabe, I remember, I think is the only – I left a practice crying one time because he got me into this like headlock that I just couldn't get out of. And I was so pissed off and I just like left. And that he was really tough, Pat McCabe. I was actually fortunate. I think we were all fortunate that we were all kind of like around the same size. We could get good workouts together, but really didn't have to wrestle each other too much.
Well, that was probably by design. That was probably by design a little bit too, being that you guys were training together. You guys were the studs. And so like me and Kugel my senior year, there was no way we were going to go the same weight. We were working out. We were workout partners. We were like good friends, right? And like you, Greg, Pat, and Dave were buddies. But just my own selfless plug for Greg, I think Greg was the best of the three. and I think if you said that his freshman year, people would have looked like that. The evolution of Greg is insane because Dave was definitely the best at. He was already a section champ. He was a superstar. By the time Greg was a senior, man, if Lou Rudrella didn't exist, and we talked about this before, for people that are listening to give a little recap of Greg is, Lou Rudrella, not only was he a state champion that year, that kid went to senior nationals and pinned every single person he wrestled at the national tournament. That's how good he was, He
also used an illegal armbar on Greg.
Chicken wing?
Chicken wing.
Yeah, you could say that. I think I told Greg that. But I was talking so much crap to Tom Ryan, who's the coach at Ohio State now, and I wasn't a big shot at the half shot at all, but I was feeling myself a little bit. I saw that Greg was in the finals, and I knew Lou was a big half shot recruit at the time, like big time blue chip recruit. I'm like, Coach, sorry, he's going down in the finals. But Louis was really good. Louis is one of my friends as well. Very, very cool guy, nice guy. So, but super talented, and
he always has been a nice guy when I've run into him. But
he is very.
So you're talking about the progression. That's another thing I was thinking about, because I remember my freshman year, this one you actually made me go with you. We went to the state tournament. We drove up to, I think it was like Syracuse that year.
It was the last year at Syracuse, I think.
Yeah, it was in Syracuse, and like I was like, whatever. And I specifically remember watching Troy Nickerson that year winning, and you're like, watch, this kid's gonna be nasty, and already was. I think he was a state champ, 8th, 9th, 10th. 11, 12.
So yeah.
And so I remember watching him that year and just like being there and being like, oh, this is actually cool. Like that gave me an extra drive that like I wanted to just get there. And that's what I did. And then next year, like I won section, I got there. I was probably a little too happy just being there. I think I won one match and I was like, this is cool. I won a match at States. And then I had another year and like, okay, I placed. And then next year I was like, okay, now that I placed, I want to win this thing. So I think like getting the exposure as early as possible is super important for guys, because when you think of it as kind of like this abstract, like, oh yeah, state champ, whatever, but then you see it and you're like, oh, those kids, they're good, but they're just kids, I could be there. And watching, I remember like going up to, that was a fun trip too, going up to Syracuse, but going up there just to watch was probably a really good, entry point.
What were you seeded in that tournament your senior year?
They did it differently.
Oh,
they did it differently.
Yeah, because there was a couple buys. There was only 12 guys in the weight.
There's only 12 guys, and if you were like a returning player, they put you on opposite sides of the bracket.
I think they just tried to like separate certain people.
There wasn't like a one seed. I'm sure he probably was ranked like second or so though going in, something like that.
Maybe that kid Mandera from Section 5 spanked me pretty good junior year, and I ended up beating him in the semi. So he might have been third.
Do you remember what school he was from? Section 5? Fairport.
With a C, kind of.
Victor.
Something with a C.
Canastota?
Yeah, I think that's it.
I think they're Section 3 though.
I don't know.
We have a beef
like that.
Yeah, we don't like that team. But anyway, I just not to get too far off topic too is like, you look at, like we talked about this yesterday too, right? It's got to start somewhere. When I was a freshman at Greeley, they were terrible. They were worse than when maybe you took over the program, Coach. They were bad. There was like 6 or 7 kids on the team at that point. It was really, really bad. And I got there and I was very much bought in at that point already. I was going to the club, doing that stuff. That wasn't great. I wasn't as good as Greg as a freshman all section, but I was like 20.
Tried to get on the team in 8th grade. I remember you were trying to petition for that.
Yeah, well, that's still a problem that we can't get past.
Still a problem. I got my kids going to school here too.
Yeah, and they're capable of doing that. But, I got there, did well my freshman year, but then Greg bought in and Burke bought in. And next thing you know, by my senior year, Greg's junior year, I think we were like 5th or 4th in the section, something like that. And we weren't, it was us 3 that scored all of those points, obviously. But even in dual meets, we weren't horrible. We had a full lineup for the most part. The guys were getting better. And then Greg graduated, Ben graduated, and that was it. Because those were the guys that were brought into us, right? Ben was the last guy kind of like in that group, right?
That was the year I took over after Ben left.
What's that?
The year after Ben won a section title was my first year.
And then and then it was ruins when you took it over because nobody was bought in anymore.
I was doing modified, so I had a team. I took over. The guys on the team were Kevin Frances. I don't know who else was on that team. Oh, Mike Holmes, Harper Pack. Those guys were all on your team.
Yeah, I wrestled with them.
My senior year.
I was thinking about just funny things that happened too, like Brian Frances, who was in my year.
Good, yeah.
I remember, great guy, small. I remember when I was a 103, or actually my freshman year when I was 96, but I cut down to it. I wrestled 103 all year. He was wrestling 96 when I was at 103, and he was so small that he actually was almost below the minimum for 96. And I remember him. I don't even know why. Like I always thought it was hilarious. Like, they would buy a big box of powdered donuts, and he would sit there and stuff powdered donuts in his mouth. Like that was like heavy enough. Like didn't really make that much sense. But I remember he had to like pound donuts because I think it was like 80, what was it, like 86 or something? Like you had to be above that, and he was like barely making it.
He was ranked first in the section for a second.
Brian Franchise?
For like a minute. I think it was the first rankings of the year. And then
that's cool.
But I don't know if you remember, Greg, but I actually want to talk about this a little bit, cutting weight, because it's different now than it was then. I think it was way more dangerous back then, to be honest, and especially with people like my crazy butt. But I'll never forget when Mike Holmes was a freshman, I was cutting far too much weight, and I'm jogging around, and he like tried to trip me or something. He's this freshman. He thought he was like this big tough guy. When I said I was an inch away from taking his life, I was very, very, very close. Like he was a nice kid, but he came in with a little bit of I don't know if the chip on the shoulder is the right word, but we took care of that pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, you were cutting a lot of weight, and I always felt like I couldn't really complain to you because I was not doing anywhere near as much as you. But yeah, it was hard. It was hard.
You remember some of the stories and stuff? Because I remember some stories vividly.
I remember I missed weight once, and I was pissed.
What was
and
that?
It was some small tournament, and that was the other thing too. Like that, maybe we can get into, but we don't have to. But like we didn't really get great competition throughout the season, not until state tournament really. So we'd go to these small little dinky tournaments, and it was like a round robin tournament, or it was, I don't even remember what it was called. It wasn't like anything that people know of, but we went to it and I missed weight. I don't know how. I was like doing all the stupid tricks that I don't know if people still do, like stand on your head, go in a headstand for like 10 minutes, lose a 0.1, spitting into a cup, like all the stupid stuff. And Kaleo put me in garbage bags on the bus to the tournament, and I do sit-ups on the bus to try to lose it. But I didn't make it, but I did. They'd let me wrestle, but it like didn't count. So they let me wrestle, and I beat everybody, but I didn't win because I didn't make weight, and it pissed me off. I remember.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
So are those part of your wins? Did you count them?
No.
Well, you should have. How many was there?
3.
All right, so it's 118.
No, I remember being pissed because they let me.
Imagine if Aaron had 117. You just got
how many did you have? Wasn't it like 118 or 115?
I think it was 115.
What a memory.
Yeah. You are good. That is really good.
You know what, though? I wrote it down so many times, I still don't have it anywhere where anybody could see it. Like, you had 108, Ant, I think?
105.
105. I don't even know. Schwartfager had over 100, too.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I mean, he wrestled for 5 years. He wrestled for 5 years.
I remember my 100th win, too, because that kid, Brian Catalano, that I said pissed me off, it was on him. And my parents, apparently, my parents told me the story, too, that all the other parents were coming over before the dual meet, like congratulating them, like on my 100th win before the match. And my mom said she felt so uncomfortable. She knew that kid's mom was like right over there, too. And they were like congratulating her before. And then actually my dad gave me this when I got my 100th win. I still wear it. So
awesome.
He wore this for like 20 years and gave it to me. So this was the 100th win gift.
Oh, that's so cool.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Wrestling,
about cutting weight. Oh, another funny thing about cutting weight. I don't know if you know this, but Coach Tatora, there was like a hydration test for certifying in the beginning of the year, and this dude is pee shy. Everyone else like can just pee in a cup and get the hydration test taken care of. Tatora, you had to everyone had to turn away, put the sink on, get the sound going. I remember getting that at certification every year. It was pretty fun.
We always have one that does that still to today. We have 27 kids go through and one kid.
I mean, certifications are stupid though. Not anymore. They're better now. But back then, they were dangerous. Speaking of cutting weight, we didn't have to make weight. We would make weight at certification. We were hydrated, however we were hydrated, and I mean that's how it was, right? Back then we were crazy, and then
even in college, everyone cheated.
Yeah, and then example, if I made 142 at certification or whatever, I didn't see that weight until divisionals again. Mm-hmm. And it was a struggle. I remember I wrestled 140 at sectionals my junior year. And for example, I'd have a hard time making 45 for duels. It wasn't like I was just
you were cutting for the weight above.
Yeah, and it was different, right? But you know what's crazy, and this shows maybe this is not why everybody isn't like us to an extent, is even like I have fond memories of like the weight cuts and stuff like that. They were hard, but I remember going up to the club, sitting in the sauna with Greg or somebody and like joking around and just knowing that you were part of a specific group that was willing to do more than other people made it interesting to me. Do you know what I mean? Like it was cool to be there at 8:00 at night and everybody else was doing God knows what, but we were sweating, we were working out, we were getting extra drill in, like, and we felt like shit, but it was cool that like Michael Giovanni was with us and took us, you know, to the mall to get a massage from the ladies that sit in the middle of the mall.
Yep.
You know, like all these things that were
just how to weigh our food and stuff too.
Yeah, like, but like ice baths and stuff like that, I still bring up with the kids now, you know, cool downs, warm-ups. Cool down's more of a mental thing, right? We're doing our cool down so other people see us do it. And we did stuff like that.
Yeah.
Right. So I wanted to say that with Greg here, just because hopefully our kids are watching this, that, you know, practice what you preach, right? Like that, this was me. Like I was this person. Now, of course, the older I get, the more mature I get, the more seasoned as a coach I get, I learn, I evolve, I try to get better. But I feel like that work ethic from me and Greg and guys like that we were like that. You know, it's not a make-believe thing, if that makes sense.
And you're like your teammates, and it wasn't always our teammates at Greeley, but, you know, our club teammates and the guys that we really trained hard with, everyone, you know, if the other guys do it, you do it, and they push you to do that stuff. Although, you know, the weight cutting is.
Now as a coach, I'll tell people, get big. Like if people ask me about weight, I'm like, get bigger and stronger. You know, don't worry about that. But it was a different world. You know, we didn't know better. Like I that's what all the really good guys did, I thought. So I was like, let me cut all this weight. But meanwhile, I probably would have been better off. You know, I ended up having a good career anyways, but it definitely affected me in my senior year. I was cutting a lot of weight. Like I wasn't the same person when I was making weight, and I was recovering from an injury, right? And it was probably harder to recover from that injury because all the weight I was cutting. So it was pretty stupid when you think about it. How would I know? You know, I didn't know any better.
And you know, I remember one match, and you know, there was obviously like over 100 matches in high school, but one of them I remember really well at Hen Hud. It was my freshman year, and there was this kid. I can't remember his name right now. I can picture his face though, and he was a 112 pounder. He was pretty tough. Like I think he was all section or something. And Kaleo bumped me up. I was I was wrestling 103, but I was really a 96 pounder that year, and I bumped up to 112 and won, and I beat this pretty tough kid at 112, and I remember like being really proud of that too. So like that was an important match for me, even though like it was bumped up. So,
but it shows with weight, right?
Like maybe cutting weight doesn't necessarily need to happen for everybody.
Well, like you said,
you gotta lose some. You gotta lose some. Some of these kids come in about what, you know.
Well, yeah. I mean,
they're gonna naturally lose 7-8 pounds just from the workouts we do.
And if our parents are watching this, now, we don't push weight cutting, right? But out of every team in Section 1, our team probably cuts the least, and a couple of our guys probably should cut a little weight. And it's not cutting weight like drastic stuff that we did. I'm talking about just eat healthy and get an extra workout in here and there, you know. And then wrestling a weight where you're safe. Some of our kids cut so little of weight where they're wrestling guys that are coming down to their weight class that are bigger. And to me, that just takes discipline, right?
Yeah.
But I'm not talking about like me and Greg, me more specific with the weight cutting, but if Greg was on our team now, he would quadruple what these guys are cutting. You know, I'm not talking about drop 15 pounds when you have 8% body fat. You know, I'm not saying that. I'm saying, you know, be smart, be reasonable, be in the weight that you should be in, you know, if that makes sense. Yeah. You know, I don't know. But I don't know, Greg, we got a little more time and then we'll wrap it up. But do you have any funny stories from me and you in high school that would make maybe for the kids us more relatable? Because I think they think I'm just this like psycho machine and I'm not a human being. I think it'd be probably funny for them if something, I don't know. Like,
I wish you would have prepped me on this. I don't know. The wrestling without your hand, the arms behind your back was definitely one of the more fun things. Some that I probably shouldn't say.
Well, Greg, he always said that he had a lot of swag in high school. Is that true?
I never said that.
He didn't.
I've said the opposite.
I never. Yeah.
He did.
Yeah.
Put it this way: for somebody that doesn't shut the hell up, if you watch these interviews, I blab and I blab and I blab. I didn't talk too much in high school.
Hey, he was pretty shy. He was pretty shy.
Like, I did.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I was.
Yeah, it wasn't like the girls were.
No.
Flocking over, but
you don't have to go there.
They were admiring from afar, but
yeah. I was very charming if you got to know me.
He was really, really focused.
Did you guys get a lot of fans at your matches to come watch you? Did the basketball team show up to
Yeah,
watch?
you know what it was? I think
You guys were studs. I mean,
Greg might have a different outlook on this, but I think when all three of us started getting really good, a lot of Burke's, and they were Greg's friends too, but a lot of Burke's, like the football people would come in. Like, so me, Greg, or Burke would be up. I vaguely remember it being like this, and the weight room was attached right there, and they would come in for our matches, and then they would leave.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
You know, they would be like, they would scream.
And they loved watching Phil Orbetta.
Oh yeah,
we had Michael Orbetta too.
Oh, Michael, I had Michael Orbetta, which is crazy. I wrestled with his brother.
Yeah.
I don't know about him.
But one other thing too is like I remember the football players used to come in. They were in the weight room that was attached to the gym, and they would come in and like, remember this? It was these kids that were like pretty big, like 200-pound kids, and they would like challenge me to like. They thought they would throw me around, and I'm like okay, and I would just like take them down, and I was 100 pounds, so I remember that. So they definitely had a respect for us.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, there was. You know how people.
It wasn't like there weren't like fans though.
But nobody was coming up to us when we were junior. When he was a junior and I was a senior, no one was coming up to us like doing the stereotypical making fun of wrestling to us. Like they knew, everybody knew who we were. So we gained respect back in the school for wrestling, but then it probably went by the wayside, and then we got it back again a little bit now. But because nobody would look cross-eyed at Jacob Ferrer or Aaron or Matt or anything.
No, Jacob
is Jacob. But yeah. So I mean, I want to. We could let Greg have the last words too. I want to wrap up soon, but or a couple words, whatever he wants to talk about.
I'd like to just address that. Greg had a great high school career, but he also went and had a great college career at Brown University. Yeah. So, do you think that wrestling helped you get into the school, or you had the grades to get in anyway?
Oh no, I wouldn't have gotten in without wrestling. No shot.
What was your GPA, Greg? If you don't mind me asking.
Yeah, but you were up there though.
It was up there, but I was thinking about this too when you were talking to Izzy, and she was like 4.0 straight. I really wasn't, and that's something I think wrestling helped a lot with. I think my freshman year, I was smart, like I was good at math and stuff, but I wasn't a straight A student my freshman year. I remember specifically I got caught plagiarizing in English class, and I got a 0.0 on English for a whole quarter or semester or whatever it was. Yeah, and that really was not good. And and actually it was John Deagle really kind of whipped me into shape there. He knew I was kind of hanging out with certain people and doing a little something I shouldn't be doing, and he really had a talking with me. He was like, you got to take this more seriously. You're too smart to be doing this. And I think right around the time I started winning a lot in wrestling is right when my grades started going up. So I kind of had straight A's like towards the end of sophomore year and then throughout the rest, but my freshman year was not great. So I think I graduated like a 3.7 or 3.8 or something, but obviously not bad, but I don't think I would have. I didn't have the grades or SAT scores to get into Brown on like without wrestling now.
So when you got to Brown, you also had to get there and do the work there.
Yeah.
Do you think that wrestling mindset played a role in how successful you were when you got to Brown? Because I'm sure that academically.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. And it keeps you on like a tight schedule. When everyone else was kind of hungover and sleeping in, we were working out at 6 a.m. and then going to an 8 a.m. class. So that helped. I think just going through Greeley honestly helped a lot. Like Greeley is a pretty tough school. Mm-hmm. Forget about wrestling. Like my chemistry class in high school my senior year was way harder than my freshman year at Brown.
Who was your teacher?
Goodman.
Oh, okay. Good guy.
Yeah. So chemistry.
Does he still teach though? Goodman?
Oh, I think
he retired like 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah. So yeah, I forget where we were going with that, but
I was gonna go. I think it's interesting what Greg said, and I just want to kind of get this out. Is that if you look at Greg, and hopefully our young wrestlers are watching this, we had a talking with them. We've been Zooming twice a week, just to keep them informed and connected. And I like to think that no other team's really doing that, so it kind of keeps us like ahead of the game. And I said, I'm like, guys, you can play video games. I mean, make sure you get your homework done. Make sure you do things you're supposed to be doing with your family and all of that. But if you can't take an hour to watch an interview with Greg Einfrank, you can't take an hour to watch an interview with Izzy or Bing Bing or Jacob or Matt or Aaron. They're giving you the cheat code on how to be successful, whether it's, to me, wrestling breeds success elsewhere as well. It's not just on the mat. But I think Greg's story is perfect because a lot of these people are starting late in the game. They're not me. I was lucky in the sense because I love wrestling and I found it when I was young and I was doing it when I was a third grader, right? But Greg was able to start as a seventh grader. And yeah, I'm sure he would have been even better if he started younger, but he started as a seventh grader, was about a 500 wrestler, ends up being a state finalist, ends up being an Ivy League wrestler, ends up placing at the IWAs, being captain of the team, going through struggles his freshman year where he probably was hanging out with the crew that he shouldn't have been hanging out with. So he had a little, adversity as a seventh grader, a little more again as a ninth grader. Everybody's human, but he got it done, right? So if there's a will, there's a way. If you want to do it, do it. There's no excuse. And I think it helps for Greg as it helped for me that I was there for Greg. Greg was there for me. But I think we have that culture where we should be doing the same thing. It helped that Jacob was there for Aaron and Aaron was there for Jacob. Like-minded people, they get the job done. And it's going to serve you way past the wrestling mat. It's like Greg's doing great, and I'm sure his family has a lot to do with that. His upbringing has a lot to do with that, but wrestling has a lot to do with that too, and I think that's a point that needs to get put out there.
For sure.
Greg, did you win most outstanding wrestler at the Section 1 tournament?
Definitely my sophomore year. I don't know about senior year, but definitely sophomore year when I beat Paswell for sure.
Did you wrestle Grant your junior or senior year at sectionals? No, right?
No, he left. He left the section. He moved to Pennsylvania.
He just left after you beat him?
Yeah, you don't remember that?
No, I don't remember what happened to that guy. I knew he was in Pennsylvania. I knew Grant was in Pennsylvania eventually because he's friends with my friend Justin Accordino from Pennsylvania.
He went to Blair. Maybe he went to Blair the next year and then went to Pennsylvania. He bounced around a little bit, but he left Section 1 after that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Something packing. What?
And my dad tells a funny story too about that because I beat him in the division finals and it was a big upset. And my dad said he ran into Paswell's dad in the hallway. And my dad fabricates stories a little bit, so I'm not entirely sure it's true. And but Mr. Paswell, who was actually a pretty nice guy to me after that too, so I don't want to bash him, but he's apparently, as the story goes, he goes up to my dad and is like, "It's going to be different next week," and my dad's like, "Yeah, Greg's going to pin him next week."
Imagine if he did say that. What a call that would be. Holy.
He claims it's true.
That's awesome. I think it is true. That story will live on.
You know his dad's a great musician, right? You didn't know that. I want to wrap up one thing. I let Greg have the last word too. His mom was always great. She was always around. His dad was super supportive. My dad was there, and I think that needs to be talked about a lot because with a sport like this, you look at David Schreiber. Right, David Schreiber has so much to do with a lot of our kids' success. Wendy, Steve Walk, the Machados now, all these parents. I'm not leaving any out. I'm trying not to leave any out. There's so many. But if you want to be – and other teams. I saw Quincy Downs' mom is everywhere. With like Pete Albus's dad is – all these guys that are superstar wrestlers, a lot of times, not every time, but a lot of times you see a parent very close by. And it takes a village, like you say, to embellish, right? Is that what you say that you're saying?
I wasn't the first one to say that.
No, you can make believe, but
I borrowed that. I borrowed it.
It ain't easy to be successful. It ain't easy to be successful in the sport.
It's really true, and I was talking to my mom about this actually too, because I was just talking to her about I was talking to Tatora and DeBellis about wrestling a little bit, and I was really fortunate to have parents that were super supportive, and they didn't know anything about wrestling. I think I was actually kind of fortunate about that too. And I think that's like where the sweet spot is with parents is like being super supportive, bringing you where you need to go, and like leaving the coaching to the coaches. Because there's just way too much intensity that you don't need it at home too. And I always felt kind of fortunate that like my parents didn't really know that much about wrestling. Like they learned throughout, but they were like, Coach, like Deagle or whoever, just like make him better. We trust you. Let's just do it. And they stayed out of that. And I was really fortunate for that. And they really put up with a lot. Like when you were talking about cutting weight, like when I was 14 years old and I was cutting weight for the first time, I was
Me too.
Like you didn't want to go near me. My mom would try to offer me like to cook me dinner and I would bite her head off, Yeah. So they put up with a lot, but they were super supportive. And it was funny. Like Mr. Schreiber was talking about driving an hour and a half to watch 1 minute. And, that's what it is with parents. And, my mom flew out to Vegas to watch me wrestle when I was in college and just all over the place. And
my dad was there and we met up.
We met up. I remember that. That was fun.
We hung out on the strip, which was really cool.
That was fun.
Aaron, Jacob, and Matt, hopefully we'll get some of those same experience. They're all wrestling one right now.
Yeah, that was cool.
It was really cool.
I didn't actually run into that many other guys. Dave Cole Giovanni was at a tournament. He wrestled we wrestled up in Binghamton. I saw him there once, but
it's different too, Greg. Like the club's getting bigger, right?
Yeah.
We're putting
there's
out
a lot
B1
more
wrestlers.
college guys now.
Yeah, so they see each other everywhere now. When
Yeah.
it was me and you, we were like the first kind of guys, you know, Mazurko, but like we were the first kind of guys that really were taking it to the next level. But I just wanted to add on one thing because you said it, and I can't not say it now. And I've said it to DeBellis before, I think, and now that I have a son, right? I have Luca, and I want him to wrestle, of course. I would never make him wrestle. And DeBellis knows better with Nicky and Jake. He has his 2 boys. And people ask me all the time, they're like, if Luca wrestles, are you going to be like this crazy coach? And I'm like, I can't say what I'm going to be because that's, you know, however long away. But I really don't think I'm going to be. You know, I think, you know, if a guy like Greg was in New York, I'd say, Greg, you know, whip this guy in shape, or Jake up, whoever's around. But I'd rather be dad, you know, because like you said, there's that intensity. And my dad was a little intense kind of, but he didn't know wrestling as well, but he got into it a lot. But he never was over the line, right? There was times we would be in the car ride home and he'd try to tell me, like, why aren't you in a better stance? I'm like, why don't you know what you're talking about? And like, we go back and forth.
I witnessed some of those conversations.
Yeah, we go back and forth. But when I lost my senior year at States, you know, I took 4th my junior year, and like Greg, I wanted to win it my senior year. There was nothing else. 3rd didn't matter. You know, I wanted to win the tournament. And when I lost in the quarters, I threw a temper tantrum pretty much. I was not as mature as maybe I should have been, and I disappeared, right? I wrestled back. I was out. I disappeared into the streets of Albany. And then my dad finally found me, and we were talking, and you could see in his eyes that he was upset that I was upset. You know what I mean? He knew how bad I wanted it, and he was hurt. He wasn't mad at me. He wasn't like, you know, oh, I can't believe you didn't win a state title. It was more like, you'll be fine. Like it's just a tournament. And more parents, I think, and we're lucky in that sense. But I see sometimes wrestling parents kind of take it too far, and they don't get it. Like, be dad, you know, just be dad, and like, I'll be hard on your son. Trust me. Let me do that. You know, you could, you know, give him a hug. You know who's very good at that is Dennis Robbins' dad.
Yes.
You know, he coaches hard, but I always see him give him a hug after every match. You know, that's your son. You know, at the end of the day, wrestling ends. Like, you want a relationship there. You know, so I think that was important that you said
something good you should ask Schwartfager about too.
Yeah, for sure.
I haven't talked to him yet.
Yeah, he's coming. Yeah, I think he'll be a great one too. I'm very excited about that. But Greg, I appreciate it, man. You have any final words you want to get out before we wrap this up?
I think I hit everything I wanted to say from my notes. The only thing that that you said that I wanted to just touch upon too is you were talking about, you know, I don't know if watching an hour, I doubt watching an hour with me is going to change anybody's career, but you were saying, you know, like you have the time to do this and you're not doing anything else. You can make the time. And I remember that's something that was always instilled upon us is like, you think about your opponent, whoever it is, like Grant Paswell, my sophomore year, that's who I thought about the entire year. And it's like doing that extra work at the end is like, is he doing that extra work? Because if he is, you have to do that and more. You know, you really have to put in the extra work and outwork your opponents. That's really the only way to win.
Awesome. I can wrap it up with that. That's a great way to wrap it up.
You great job, Greg. Thank you so much.
You're the man. I'm going to stop recording, but hang out for a second. I appreciate it. Guys, and if you're watching, we're going to get this guy back eventually to come do a clinic or something for you guys because we need to learn the boot scoot and the zap tap bad.
Yes.
Thanks,
I'd love it.